The diplomatic vessel Celestial Harmony shuddered violently as another system's failure cascaded through its infrastructure. Parker gripped the emergency handle, his knuckles white as the lights flickered between crimson emergency mode and complete darkness. "This isn't good," he muttered, checking the atmospheric controls. The display showed critical failures across every major system, across the small observation deck. Nancy, daughter of Empress Veltara of the Ashkari Empire, maintained her composure with practiced royal dignity, though Parker noticed the subtle tremor in her elongated fingers. Her crystalline skin reflected the warning lights in prismatic patterns. "Engineer Parker," she said, her voice carrying the melodic quality of her species. "What is our situation?" Parker ran his hand through his hair, a gesture Nancy had learned meant he was processing bad news. "Life support is failing. Main reactor is offline. We've got maybe 6 hours of breathable air in this section, and temperatures are already dropping." The diplomatic mission had been meant to strengthen the fragile alliance between humanity and the Ashkari Empire. Parker, a maintenance engineer, had been assigned to the human delegation purely by chance, a last-minute replacement. Nancy had joined to represent her mother's commitment to peace. Neither had expected the ship's AI to suffer a catastrophic malfunction, sealing them in this isolated section, while the rest of the crew evacuated to the functioning modules. "Can you repair it?" Nancy asked, moving closer. Despite her royal status, she'd spent the past 3 days treating Parker as an equal. Curious about human customs and engineering. "Not without parts I don't have access to," Parker admitted. He pulled off his jacket as the temperature continued to drop. "But I can jury-rig something to keep us alive until rescue arrives." "How long will that take?" "Rescue, with the distress beacon active, maybe 12 hours. The jury-rigging? I need about 2 hours." Nancy's facial membranes fluttered her species equivalent of a worried frown. "And we have 6 hours of air." "Yeah," Parker said grimly. "Math's not in our favor." Over the next hour, Parker worked with focused intensity, rerouting what little power remained. Nancy assisted, her 3-fingered hands proving surprisingly adept at following his instructions. She handed him tools, held panels in place, and asked questions that showed keen intelligence. "Your species is remarkable," Nancy observed as Parker welded a connection with a handheld plasma torch. "You see an impossible problem and immediately begin solving it. We're stubborn like that," Parker replied, not looking up from his work. "Humanity's got this thing where we refuse to accept impossible. Is that why you've spread to 17 star systems in less than a century? Other species took millennia." Parker paused, meeting her luminous eyes. "We're good at adapting. Had to be. Back on Earth, we evolved on a death world by everyone else's standards." Nancy had heard the stories: Earth's extreme weather, its toxic plant life to most alien species, its aggressive fauna. The galaxy had been shocked when humanity emerged from such a hostile environment, not as warriors, but as engineers, diplomats, and traders. Gravity to high, temperature swings to extreme, radiation to intense. Parker continued, returning to his work. "If you can survive Earth, you can survive anywhere." 3 hours pass. Parker managed to stabilize life support at 40% efficiency. Not enough. The temperature had dropped to near freezing, and both of them could see their breath. "We need to conserve body heat," Parker said, his teeth chattering. "And oxygen. We should minimize movement." Nancy's species didn't handle cold well. Her crystalline skin had dulled, and her movements had become sluggish. "What do you suggest?" Parker hesitated, then pulled emergency thermal blankets from a storage locker. "This is going to sound strange, but we need to share body heat. Close proximity, pooled resources." If Nancy found the suggestion inappropriate for royalty, she didn't show it. "Your species generates significant thermal energy. I've noticed this during our mission. Yeah, we run hot. Evolutionary advantage." Parker spread the blankets in the corner where they'd conserve the most heat. "If you're comfortable with it." "Parker," Nancy interrupted gently, "I would prefer to survive than to maintain formal distance." They settled together under the thermal blankets. Parker's back against the wall, Nancy leaning against him. The difference in their body temperatures was immediately apparent, his warmth seeping into her cold skin. "Tell me about Earth," Nancy said softly as they waited in the darkness. her voice growing drowsy from the cold and thin air. "If we're to die here, I'd like to know more about the planet that produces such stubborn people." So Parker talked. He described oceans and mountains, storms and seasons. He told her about humanity's struggles, their wars and their triumphs, their art and their music. Nancy listened, asking occasional questions, her body gradually warming against his. Hours passed. The oxygen levels dropped dangerously low. Parker felt himself growing lightheaded, but kept talking, knowing that if they fell asleep, they might not wake up. "Stay with me, Nancy," he urged when her questions stopped coming. "I'm here," she whispered. "Your species' determination is infectious." Parker smiled in the darkness. "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about stubbornness." The rescue team found them 11 hours after the initial failure, Parker unconscious but stable, Nancy barely clinging to life, wrapped in his arms under the thermal blankets. The rescuers would later report that Parker had continued jury-rigging repairs, even as the oxygen depleted, creating a small pocket of breathable air around their position. When Nancy woke in the medical bay 3 days later, her mother beside her, the first thing she asked was whether Parker had survived. When told he was recovering well, she requested his presence immediately. Empress Veltara watched her daughter's face carefully. "The human engineer saved your life." "No, Mother," Nancy corrected, her crystalline skin now vibrant and healthy. "We saved each other. That's what humans do. They refuse to give up, and they bring you along for the stubborn ride." The Empress smiled, a gesture she'd learned from human diplomats. Perhaps this alliance would be stronger than she'd thought. After all, any species that could make her dignified daughter sleep beside a stranger to survive and be grateful for it was worth knowing better. Parker was awarded the HFY Star of Honor, the first human to receive it. But when asked about the ordeal, he simply shrugged in that characteristically human way and said, "We did what needed doing." Nancy, for her part, made sure the alliance negotiations included Parker as a permanent consultant. Some bonds, she'd learned, were forged in impossible circumstances, and those were the strongest kind. The end.